Hello, everybody. Been a long time. I've been waiting to get my approval from YouTube for my second channel, and of course, it takes a little bit of time. And I was kind of late getting it um, sent in to them, but or the stuff done online to get it. But it should be with sometime by tomorrow evening, um, early Saturday, and then I can get my other channel uh, set up because I do want to do it. I am calling it Armor of Love, and I'm going to be strictly doing uh, nothing but child abuse cases on that channel. But as soon as they give me the okay, then I will put my channel up. Hi, Miss CD. Hi, Cotton. I see you left a message. Anyway, I have three different cases tonight I want to discuss. One case goes back in the late 80s. Another case was in 2017. Hi, Holly. Another case just happened this month. Hasn't even gone to court or anything. Hi, Liz. And it's about a 16-year-old girl. You all might have seen it in Cleveland, Ohio, that give birth to twins and put them in the backyard in the trash can. And the grandmother found them on Saturday. They were full-term twins, deceased, of course. I'm at CD. And again, the thing that's troubling to me about this is these people are trying to say they didn't know the 16-year-old girl was pregnant with twins. And she had twins apparently at home. Nobody heard anything, but neighbors heard a baby crying. And they were saying that mom needs to feed that baby. And they kept hearing this baby or babies crying. Uh, they didn't really specify just her baby, but it could have been one or the other crying at the time because they were full term. So I just wonder why the yard wasn't even fenced in. Why didn't people move closer to where that baby was crying to try to see? Babies have been found from crying in dumpsters and crying and just left out in the open and all kinds of things. And the thing this girl uh, knew, and I know she knows it at 16 because it's been part of an ongoing thing to where if you have a baby, you don't have to keep it, drop it off at a hospital, drop it off at a police station, drop it off at the fire department, no questions asked. That's the end of it. And then you don't face any charges. This girl, however, chose to give birth to her twins on a Thursday and throw them in the trash can in the backyard alive. The grandmother found them on Saturday, and by that time they were too decomposed to even determine what sex they were. To me, that's pretty bad right there in itself. I just don't get things like that at all. And people that said they heard the baby cry, why didn't they move in closer to that baby crying and try to see? I mean, this is something I would do. I'm not saying you have to cross on a person's property, but if you're hearing a baby cry, for God's sakes, call the police or something to where they can go on that property and try to find that infant or go in that house or see what's going on. But you as a citizen can report that. So, of course, the judge ordered her for a mental evaluation, and she's being held in a juvenile facility undergoing that. There are supposedly 7 charges that she might possibly be charged with from, um, I guess, manslaughter to disposing, um, or let me see, child abuse, disposing of a corpse and abuse of a corpse. Um, those are some of the charges. I don't know what they're going to end up doing really because uh, they're not going to do any more until she's had this evaluation. But I thought that's pretty interesting that the judge felt like she needed to be under a mental evaluation, but yet she knew enough that she was having babies. She was going to have a baby or babies. Maybe she knew. I don't even know. To have it, and she knew enough to take him out, put him in a trash can alive. So where do you draw the line between when they're accountable and when they're not, because there's some very mature 16-year-old kids, out there. But like I said again, they know they have the options of dropping those babies off. She could have had somebody, she could have found some way. She probably could even took a cab and they would have paid the cab fare back. Drop them off at the police department, at a fire department, or at a hospital. That would have been the end of her being charged with anything, because she did what the law told her to do. So I just think that was disturbing to me when I seen that earlier, a couple weeks ago. The stuff all starting up on this. Now I want to go to a case that was in 1987, and this case was, if you can believe, this case was in New York, and actually it was in Manhattan, uh, a better, well, I guess kind of a better area of New York. And maybe some of you all have heard about this case. I had not heard about this case until I got to actually looking into it. It was about Elizabeth Lisa Steinberg. They called her um, Liz, or Lisa. I'm sorry, they called her Lisa. Hello, BC and Spacebound. Thanks for being here. And let me give you a little bit of information about this. This was a man's name was Steinberg, and he was with a lady. Um, they weren't married, but he had been with a lady like 12 years. Ida, I think that's what her first name was. I don't know how to pronounce some of these names, but he was a criminal defense. Um, he was a criminal defense attorney there, and this is what I'm confused about too. Back then, if you went into the military like he did during the time of Vietnam, he went into the military, dropped out of college. When he come back in, he finished his college, but he didn't have to take his final bar exam to be certified as an attorney. Because of that, they waived that back then. I think that's really kind of stretching it if they can't. What if he couldn't pass the bar exam? So you just hand them a bar exam just because they volunteered to go into the military. A lot of guys have gone to Vietnam, gone in the military. My ex-husband did. I know people in the family that have, and they never got any special privileges. But anyway, he was a very prominent criminal defense lawyer, and his name was Steinberg. And um, this is another thing. There was the woman he was with, she was like 35, and I guess she couldn't. They tried, I guess, to have kids, and she couldn't get pregnant or something. I don't know. There were problems. So he talked to a doctor he knew that had connections in getting children, and he gave uh, this mother of this little girl gave him, the lawyer, $500 to find a good Roman Catholic home for the baby. She was a college student and she could not take care of the baby. But she come up with $500 and asked him as an attorney to please find a home. So what did he do? He kept the little girl. This girl was never, ever officially adopted by him. But they do have a Lisa's law that is now in force there because of this, that um, is helping to prevent future problems like this in adoption, because then there was too many loopholes in the adoption, and now they're making sure that all these loopholes are getting closed in before any of this stuff is finalized, and there can't be special privileged people out there that can bypass these adoptions. So they really come down, I guess, hard on this after this case. But at one time, for about, I think about over 5.5 years, this little girl seemed to be the apple of his eye. She went places with him, uh, all kinds of things. He took her to dinner. She wanted to be with him all the time. And I have a feeling the reason why she wanted to be with him all the time was because his live-in was getting abused by him horribly. And I'll get into that when I get to part where they were arrested. Um, so anyway, it gets close to October for Halloween, and right before that, people had noticed in the schools, teachers and others had reported bruises on her. They had reported, neighbors had said they had called in and reported a lot of hollering and screaming and a child crying and stuff. Teachers had reported the bruises on the little girl, and because they were on her face and all over, and looked like somebody had even just been just pinching and torturing her, just doing all kinds of stuff to this little girl. The thing that stood out with the teachers and was the change in this little girl's demeanor the end of October. And this was around Halloween, and all the other kids in the class had Halloween outfits on. This little girl had nothing but regular clothes on. And the way that the live-in wife of this guy said what happened was that the little girl said, "Is Daddy going to take me with him to his meeting and to dinner?" And she said, "I don't know. Go ask him." And she said the next thing she knew, he carried the little girl out and said, "You're going to have to take care of her." And come to find out, I guess this lawyer had a lot of dealings with people that sold drugs and a lot of things like that. So some very questionable people. But anyway, you could see where it looked like somebody had put their fist in the side of her face. And they said they found, well, they said she had blunt force trauma. So anyway, she laid in that bathroom floor. This lady was terrified to do anything because she had been convinced, even with, she had a leg that had gangrene in it, and she was convinced that he was going to cure her and that he was going to cure the little girl when he got back home. Well, at 6:30 that morning, 6:33, when she was no longer breathing in the bathroom floor, they called the police. The police find this little girl laying in this bathroom floor. Her hair is matted in her own vomit and filth. She smells and reeks of urine. She was totally naked and was bruised all over her body, and there was blows to the back of the head, which they said was blunt force trauma. They did find in the home a exercise bar that had blood and hair on it, and they found blood splatter on a wall. When they went into this upscale apartment, the detective said in 22 years he had never seen anything like this ever in all the 22 years he had been working at that time. He said the cleanest thing in that whole entire apartment was the fish tank, and that was it, just the fish tank. Amazing, huh? That the fish tank could be so clean, but the rest was nothing but filth. And it showed pictures. They had dirty clothes soaking in sinks. I mean, the bathroom was disgusting. They had just stuff all over it, and it just reeked, they said, of smell. They had an 18-month-old little boy, which they also, quote unquote, supposedly had adopted, but they hadn't. He was tied by a rope in a made up playpen in his own feces with curdled milk in his cup. This is what they found when they went in, when they got this 911 call. The little girl was took to St. Vincent's Hospital, and she was placed on a ventilator and reported in critical condition. This Steinberg, he went up there and Joel Steinberg, his first name, he went up there and talked to the doctor at the hospital, and the doctor explained the severity of everything. And the thing that really irks me about it is that there were other professional doctors, including this one, that said if this little girl had got help hours earlier, they could have the pressure from the brain swelling could have been they could have got that bleeding off the brain, and she could probably been saved. They're almost like they were 90% sure she could have been saved, that she would overcome this. But when he walked out in the hall, he said, this is what he said to the doctor. And it struck me as a very strange thing that somebody would say. He said, well, I guess she won't be going to the Olympics, but she'll survive anyway. If you can imagine saying such a horrible thing like that. But this is where I'm going, because is it because this man was a criminal defense lawyer that nobody bothered to pursue any of the calls that was made from the teachers at the schools, from neighbors that reported things, from things that were seen? I mean, this woman that had been with him for 12 years, y'all can go and look at pictures. It's on YouTube and everything, the story, and Google it. This woman was gorgeous when she met him. And 12 years later, you wouldn't even know who this woman was. When they arrested him, and arrested her, um, they did find cocaine in the house and other drugs. By the way, I forgot to mention that. Anyway, this woman had 2 black eyes. She had hair missing in the back of her head. Oh, clumps of hair gone. You could see multiple bruises and abrasions all over her body. She had fractured ribs. She had, there was damage even to her back and her hips. This woman was in horrible shape, and she didn't beat herself up like this. You can bet on that. I mean, it's just so it come, and she even had gangrene that has set into her right leg from she had terrible infections all through her body. She had been so into this Joel Steinberg. She thought he was the love of her life. He could do no wrong. She was so brainwashed by this man that he had convinced her that he could heal her and he could heal the little girl. And that's what he was going to do. That's what she told him. Well, he was going to heal my leg. I didn't need to do anything. He was going to heal me. And I thought, yeah, all the beatings and stuff, that too. How far are you going to go to protect? Anyway, one positive thing that come out of this, the little boy that they legally adopted, or they didn't really adopt, but they legally had the little boy. He was returned to his birth mother. His name was changed, and the child, he is doing fine. He's doing great. That's the only, and the other outcome from this little girl, they took her off life support after 3 days, and he was charged with second-degree murder. And this case was heard. I listened to one of the jurors. It was heard for 3 days, or I mean 3 months. And this is what I found amazing. This juror, he said, we couldn't do. We went to deliberate. We couldn't do a second-degree murder. And I thought, my God, this man should have got first-degree murder, in my opinion, and he should have been charged for the way he was taking what he had done to the woman that had been living with him for 12 years, abuse that she'd incurred also. And I thought, wait a minute, what's wrong? He said that for some reason, the women on the jury were not sympathetic toward her at all. They were not sympathetic in the least toward her. And some even thought that she was capable of doing this to the little girl out of jealousy. Well, that was debunked by doctors that examined this woman. They said she was in such a weak condition. He would even take, if they didn't drink so much water, he would make them eat a hot pepper and make them drink water. She said a lot of times, if she didn't do things right, he'd make her sleep in the bathtub. He'd make her go without breakfast, lunch, and supper. This is the kind of stuff he was doing to this woman. It was that the detective said she was so down deep in Steinberg, the Joel Steinberg rabbit hole, that Almost. She almost didn't get out of it, period. And I thought, and anyway, this jury said these ladies were not sympathetic to her. So they didn't want to go with the second degree murder on him. So they ended up going with manslaughter. And he got an 8.5 to 25-year sentence. And the judge recommended that he serve the complete 25 years. And this guy had the gall to get up and stand in front of the judge and tell him, I was a good father. I didn't do anything to the little girl. I didn't mistreat um I didn't mistreat her. I didn't do any of this stuff. She belonged to a cult. She was doing this. She was doing that. This woman at one time worked for Random House Publishing, was an educated woman, and helped edit children's books that people wrote. And she even wrote a book about and plants and the things they say, or something like that, and dedicated this book to Joel Steinberg, the man that she loved, the man of her life that she loved so much. This was actually the stuff that was said. This was a well educated woman that he had actually destroyed. And people that had been a friend that seen her picture in the paper did not even know it was her. She went to the hospital and visited, and she said, I wouldn't even known it was the same woman that I knew years ago. That's not even the same person, and you wouldn't know because, and if you take the pictures of her and you compare them, I mean, it's just amazing uh, what something like that can do, how much people brainwashing can destroy you and control men can have. And again, this was back in the 80s. Um, that's just things were different in the 70s and the 80s and even the 60s and 70s, especially in the 80s. They still just weren't, women were still afraid to tell on these men a lot of times. It just, and unfortunately, it's like the detective said, this little girl fell through the cracks of the CPS. She fell through the cracks of the hospital. She fell through the cracks of the police department. She fell through the cracks of the public school systems. Everybody that was supposed to be their protector and reported it, she fell through those cracks, and it cost her her life. But nevertheless, this child was never legally adopted by him. And this doctor later on did get he got fined quite a bit of money that was behind doing these adoptions and stuff like this, for taking these girls' babies and placing with these lawyers and stuff. And he had community services and stuff. But as I looked a little further into this case, I found out later on this woman, through much rehabilitation and stuff, she does help women that are victims of domestic violence. And she didn't say that she was totally innocent, that she let her down too, but I think the woman was so traumatized she didn't even know what was going on. I really do. Plus he was giving her making her do coke with him too. I forgot about that. That he'd get this coke from some of these customers, cocaine, and make her do it too. So there you go. It's another case of a lot of control. But these child abuse cases to me have not improved any through the years. They're just not improving at all. If anything, they've got extremely worse. They just have. These cases are getting, um, they're just totally out of hand. And I don't know what it's going to take. More people to start speaking up, start getting channels, start doing petitions. I don't know, but it's going to take something because people are going to have to start waking up and doing something to draw this to, it needs to be drawn to the attention. This is very, very serious. And I mean, something's got to change because there is entirely too much child abuse going on a daily basis. And a lot of these cases, I'm willing to bet that probably 80% of these cases have been reported and they've fell through the cracks. Okay. Now, I'm going to take you all to Los Angeles, California, 2017, April. There was a little boy they called Peaky Andresian. Okay, and Escobar was his mom's last name. And his mom and dad had been together. This was and yeah, his mom and dad had been together for uh, oh 8 years, and she was had also had problems getting pregnant, having problems with pregnancies, and she finally went through in vitro, and she got pregnant with this little boy. And after 8 years, she left because she said it was nothing but the father constantly screaming in the little boy's face and yelling at him and just on him all the time. Couldn't be act decent around him at all, just constantly browbeating him with his mouth and actions. So even though the mother and I'm talking about two well-educated people. The father had a bachelor's degree. They never did say in what, but he also had no criminal record. The mother was principal of an elementary school. So these are people that are, have very good careers, and they didn't have records. So this is the way the judge ruled, even though the mother had concerns and brought this, the judge ruled that each parent would have 7 days with the little boy. One would have 7 days, the next 7 days, and they just rotated 7 days. But they had to meet at a neutral place to do the exchange. And this was done in front of the police station. And the mother, I give her credit for this because she started recording the pickups and the drop offs. And this last one, when he was dropped off, actually, I think it was April the 15th. You could see, I watched it. You could see the little boy bending down. He was rubbing his mom's cheek and he's putting his hand through her hair. And she was talking to him. He kept saying, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave you. And she finally got him, to where he go. But the whole time you could see the father over there in the background pacing, um, you could see he was getting aggravated and perturbed at the attention the little boy was giving to his mother. It was like he was almost jealous of that attention. So when the little boy does go to his dad, he picks him up, and I don't know if y'all have ever seen children that they lean away from someone because they're scared, or that person tries to hug them or something and they kind of shrug them off. They don't want them touching them. They really don't want to they don't want that person holding them. But anyway, he was supposed to take him during the 7 days to Disneyland, which he did do. He did take him to Disneyland. But this is what I've learned, and I've tried to go over this enough to where I don't have to look at notes all the time, to where I have a pretty good photo memory about things, to where I can remember things after I listened to it a couple of times. But he was not returned on the 22nd when he was due back. The mother, after he was 2 hours late, notified the police. So the police were notified, and once they were notified, they had learned that the father's car had been towed from a park. And a lady had called because this guy's car with the car door was open, was sitting there in his parking lot with nobody in it and a car door open. And when the police got there, they found him 13 feet down on a trailway. He was passed out down there. The ultrasound of the little boy was up on his dash. The car seat was in the back. The little boy's jacket was in the back. The whole car, again, there was opiates in this car. They found opiates in this vehicle. The whole car had been completely doused with gasoline, and there was a rag in Uh, instead of the gas cap, there was a rag stuck in there. So they was beginning to wonder what that was all about. Well, when they took him to the hospital and they could talk to him, he suddenly didn't have a memory of anything. He didn't remember any of this. You could see abrasions on the top of his hands, and there was a lot of dirt up under his nails. But he, there was the way they talked to him, the way he acted, there was absolutely nothing they said that they could hold him on. So they figured it was better to let him out to where they could get um, have surveillance on him, and they got a wiretap on him also. So let me take you into what started to go on. He was seen early Thursday by his, and this is where cameras can catch you guys. Cameras can, because they noted, I observed this guy's behavior from the mom's video of him when he was dropped off. They have a video from his cameras leaving his home, okay, getting in Thursday afternoon. He had this blue duffel bag, which has never been found, okay? And I don't know where the little boy was at that time. They didn't say, but this was on that Thursday. And another thing that brought attention, that right there, when they seen that, drew attention. Then they started looking at his computers, and he had gone online and done a will online, giving everything to his mother and sister, including $100,000. Never even mentioned his child whatsoever. Never mentioned his child at all, even having a child. Never said anything in this will. Well, that drew a red flag there, because they already had this guy claiming he didn't know what happened at this park, and he didn't know what happened. He didn't even tell them about the little boy either. There's nothing even mentioned. It wasn't, you know, until a few hours later that they actually found out that the little boy was supposed to be actually with him, and that, when the mother had reported that and stuff, by the time it got to the detectives after this car was, I guess, impounded and they got the information, he never even offered him for any information about his son when they talked to him at the hospital. Nothing at all. He acted like he didn't have any idea what had happened or anything at all. But anyway, he was seen leaving Disneyland again on camera, exiting Disneyland at 1 o'clock in the morning. And the little boy was in the car seat, and he was with him. And 6 hours later, he pulls into this a park that he went to, and you have to pay to get in. And you can see when he paid the guy at the booth, you could see the car seat in the back. The little boy was not with him. He was no longer with him. Uh, up until, I don't know what happened between 1 o'clock and 6 hours later, but at that time, but I have a pretty good idea uh, later what, you know, when they get to talking about it, what actually happened. Um, and I can tell you that they found out there was a vomit on this little boy's jacket, and his sippy cup was still in that car too, which was strange because it was not exactly a little sippy cup, but a little cup that kids drink out of. It was his special cup, and he liked to take it. It's kind of like a little security thing for 5-year-olds. They like have certain things they like to drink out of and stuff. But they started watching him, and the people make the mistake of going on social media and putting videos up and documenting everything they're doing. And here he was in casinos, gambling and playing all these games and stuff, and had these women in his rooms, and he was just partying and having the time of his life and spending, just no mind at all about, never pursued looking for his child, never called the police department and asked any updates, never even volunteered or went on any searches for his son at all. He even went as far to go skydiving and had the audacity to yell out to his son, knowing at that time his child was dead by his own hands, that his child was dead, and acting like he was saying, hi to him that he was going to be seeing him soon or something. Just totally delusional. I mean, just acting just like nothing, no big deal. So the next thing that happened, this guy was changing his appearances. He was coloring his hair, and they seen where he'd been searching online for countries that didn't bring you back to the United States, like on any kind of charge, like they wouldn't bring you back. And so they decided, well, they couldn't chance him leaving the country. So they brought him in and they charged him. And it took them 6 hours. And finally he said, I did it. And he told him that he took his cross necklace off of his neck and the necklace his grandfather had given him. He put it on his son's neck and took his favorite jacket and suffocated him in the back seat of the car with that. Took him down at this other that drive-in park that he went to, where you had to pay to go into. Not the one where they found the car originally, but this is another one. They found him in the same pajamas that he was seen in at Disneyland, in the same pajamas, and he had him setting up on the side of like a place up under some trees, setting up. Didn't even bury him. Didn't even bury him. And what it was, how the dirt and abrasions got on his hand, he fell getting down there to put him, I guess, down there where it was. It wasn't too far away from, um, actually, I don't remember how many feet they said, but it wasn't that far away from where they had been looking. But they had finally um, found, him propped up in the sitting up position. But I mean, these are some, and this guy goes to trial and he gets 25 years, 25 years to life. This is in Los Angeles. This is in California. This was in 2007, 17. Would somebody please tell me why this man didn't get the death sentence? I used to be horribly, horribly against the death sentence. But when these people go out and they, just like with that baby Brianna I talked about before, that mother was out 13 years. I don't care. She was in the same room. I think her, the father of that baby, and her twin brother, which was this little girl's uncle, that raped the 6 month, not even 6 month old baby and abused her every day of her life, all day and all night, and laughed about it. Every one of them should have got the death sentence instead of 54 years for the father, 47 for the uncle. And I think it was 27 years for the mom, and she served 13 years, and they let her out um, for good behavior. Well, yeah, sure, they beat her up real bad while she's in there. Big deal. I don't have any sympathy for her. She let she allowed, I mean, they had another child. She allowed, had an older little boy. She allowed her husband, the father of her child, to sexually assault her 5-month-old daughter. She allowed her brother to sexually assault this child, to beat this child up, to to laugh at this child when she was screaming. They'd stuff in her mouth to keep her from screaming out loud. So 50, and they moved the father to Oregon because they was afraid somebody was going to kill him. Who cares at this point after he tortured his own child like that and killed his own child? I'm sorry, guys. I'm telling you, I don't have sympathy anymore for these people. Just like this, because this guy was a criminal defense lawyer, it gave, that we talked about a little bit ago, Joel Steinberg did, even back in the 80s, did this give the man the right to go around the adoption procedures and take this little girl that the mother willingly give him $500 to place her child in a Catholic home because that was her wishes, and she was a college student that couldn't take care of her. And he didn't do that. He chose to just keep the child, and this doctor helped work around this with this lawyer. That's the way this all come about. Same way with the little boy. Thank God the little boy's mother got him back, and she's changed his name and he's doing very well. But I don't understand this stuff. He shouldn't even have been a criminal defense lawyer. Just because he went to Vietnam, he dropped out of law school to go. He come back and graduated from law school, but he didn't have to take his bar exam. He was exempt from the bar exam back in the 80s because he served in the military. Big deal. A lot of guys have served in the military and made sacrifices. They didn't get exempt from things. They still don't. They still get treated like they're a lot of the veterans. It's disgusting the way some of them get treated. I mean, it just is. It's just there's no, and I agree with you, Miss CD. We don't have any justice any place anymore, and this is exactly the problem. I can say one thing though. In the state of Texas, we do use the death sentence quite a bit, and we're known for that. We are known that we will put people to death. But the thing, another problem I have with our judicial system here, they sit on death row way too long. And true, occasionally you will come, especially since there's been DNA now. A lot of people, not on death row, but a lot of people have got out because it's either proved them they weren't the one that maybe raped the woman, or they weren't the one that did something. Maybe even I don't know, maybe killed somebody they were accused of killing. But it's far and in between. But those people most of the time don't. There's people that are on death row uh, that aren't even confined in the state of Texas anymore for 23 hours of the day like they're supposed to be in individual cells because they're running out of room in our prison systems because there's so many people um, needing to be put in prison. And I know that there are a few people that had sympathy for Letitia Stouch, not me. I don't have any I don't have any sympathy at all for that woman. I don't have any sympathy for Lori Vallow either. I have no sympathy for either one of those women in the least. I just don't. And I don't care. People can think that um, maybe with Lori Vallow, maybe she was brainwashed a little bit by this guy. I don't know. But it didn't, but it wasn't, it wasn't just the two children that died. They killed his wife. They killed her husband by having her brother shoot him, and then her brother died. How many people do you have to kill before you have to pay? And before you can say, no, that person cannot, you can't put together things as slick as those people did and say, and like Letitia Stout, you can't put together things like her and Lori Vallow did and say, well, they're not in their right mind. They've got mental issues. I'm just sorry. It's not like that. Yes, critical thinking. Yes, many people seem to misunderstand the difference between mental illness and legal insanity. Exactly. And a lot of people, just like with the 16-year-old girl in Cleveland, Ohio, because she's 16 and she's a minor, the judge wanted her evaluated for mental illness because she gave birth to her twins in the home there. She gave birth to twins full term, and she had enough sense to put them in a trash can in the backyard alive, and they died. I mean, I just, she knew enough she knew that apparently, she felt like she'd done something. But this, again, like I said, there's too many police departments. It's been well known all over this country. Drop them off at a fire department, a hospital, or police station, and you won't face charges. These were two full term babies, and by the time the grandmother found them in the trash can on Saturday, they were too decomposed to even know what sex they were. I mean, it's just this stuff is really nauseating to me, and it's really I'm starting to get a horrible every time I see this stuff. It's like you almost get this bitter, horrible taste in your mouth, and you're looking around at your world and saying, my God, what kind of place are our kids and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren going to grow up in if things are this toxic right now and getting worse? What is it going to be like in the next 10, 15, 25 years? I mean, I've seen things go down so bad that um, I just don't understand it. I mean, it's horrible. And when you've got warning signs like with the Steinberg case, you've got warnings about this case. People reported the little girl being abused, bruises and stuff. Neighbors reported things. Um, and I mean, you get into these cases and you hear all this, and it's like the detective said they fell through the cracks. And it's a horrible thing. But like I said, the positive thing with that Lisa's law, Lisa is there's a Lisa's law now in New York that it closes all the loopholes that was back in the late 80s in adoptions. There's a lot of loopholes in adoptions and what had to be documented because back then, wherever the adoptive person got the child from, it didn't have to say who the biological mother was. That information was, they had no record of that stuff. They had no record of it. They weren't required to keep that. Now they have to require records of open and private adoptions, now. So it's just, Ollie said she's been listening to a lot of YouTubers about uh, family members. Yeah, they're speaking out. People are going to have to start speaking out. And, it's like with Letitia's Couch's husband at the time, Alsta. He married again, and he didn't want her. He asked the courts to remove his last name off of hers. He didn't want her to have anything to do with he didn't want his last name associated with her. But I didn't know that the woman he's married to, that they'd had a baby boy that had died also. So he had lost both of his sons. And the thing about it is, it seemed like a lot of people, they wanted to attack Gannon's real mother. And from the way I understand, that was a mutual understanding between Al and her, that she had some issues. She had a lot of pregnancy problems. She had to be on bed rest and have some kind of a surgery, and she wasn't able to care for the two children at that time. And she asked them, and I mean, Letitia was right there in the middle of it, seemed very open to wanting to do this and went along with it. I think the problem was that she was very jealous, number one, of the relationship that Gannon had with his mother and the fact that he wanted his mother and missed his mother. And because she was there thinking she was the primary caretaker because Al was off, I think he was in the military or something, that she should get the recognition for what she was doing with his two children. Okay, that's one thing I believe. And I think the second thing was, I think she was also didn't like the fact that Al was gone, and I think he may have been. I'm pretty sure he was mischievous and messing around and stuff. However, I think, well, she was online looking for sugar daddies too, so I don't know exactly what all was going on. It was just a battery, but it should never result in a child being brutally murdered like he was. That woman tortured that kid for weeks and weeks and made him sick and did all kinds of horrifying things to him. And that wasn't bad enough. Wasn't bad enough that she stabbed him, I think 17, 18 times. She had to shoot him on top of that. Then she had to dismember his body and dump him in Florida. I mean, how far can you go? And then you want to try to excuse somebody like that, say that, well, they apparently had mental illness. That to me, she's just an evil woman. She's just a vindictive. She tried to drag her own daughter into this stuff and use her own daughter. And to me, I mean, it's bad enough what she did without trying to put her claws into her own flesh and blood and, you know, get her involved in stuff. I mean, it's just terrible. And I keep looking. I've got so many cases that I want to get on here and discuss. And like I said, I should have my channel okay through YouTube by or no later early Saturday morning. They told me to please, it's only been 12 hours, 24 to 48 hours, but they was telling me in the notification I was getting. Just bear with us, this is what they do. And I can't stream without having the approval with YouTube, and I can't, um, you have to have the, because when you stream, unless you have a higher paid subscription, um, you can't. I don't. I don't record on StreamYard. It records on YouTube, so I have to have YouTube's permission for another channel, and it is going to be called Armor of Love. And I am going to be doing nothing but child abuse cases. And I have had so many cases I've looked into, but when I seen that baby Brianna case I've already talked about, that case blew my mind. I mean, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't think, I couldn't even function because I thought this was in New Mexico, and I know somebody that lives in New Mexico, a really good friend of mine. And she said, huh, that's the way it is here. She said, these people can do anything, and at 20, 25 years is a life sentence here. She said most of them only serve 25 years. And I thought, the mother walked out after 13 years for good behavior. And the thing that bothers me also is she had, I think I don't know how old her son, the little boy was. I think he wasn't even two, Brianna's brother. So she got out. Why that kid? Did she get her son back? I don't even know if she got him back. I mean, I know she had to change her name to be able to even exist because people were threatening her, and you can't really blame them after what she did. I mean, I'm just so sick of these people thinking they can do this stuff to children and have they're out in a few years, or they get 3 meals a day. They get to go out and play ball and do all kinds of stuff out here because they didn't get the death sentence, so they got privileges in with other inmates. And if the other and then they move them just like they did this father, baby Brianna's father. They moved him from New Mexico to Oregon because he had a 54-year sentence, and they was afraid they were going to kill him. And they're, well, who cares after what he did, after all the stuff he did to his own 5-month-old child? Who cares? I don't care. And you mean I just don't, you know. And the mother, they said, well, the mother got all beat up and everything. Well, good. I'm glad they did beat her up. She had it coming because she got in there with some women that didn't appreciate mothers who allowed people, their own husband, their own father of their child, and their own brother to sexually assault and abuse a 5-month-old baby till they killed it. I mean, that's just the extent of it. Yes, spacebound, and then it's overkill. Just like with Letitia Stiles. I mean, 18 times stabbing somebody, that wasn't bad enough. Plus all the torturing she had been doing, making him sick, and all the problems he was having prior to that, I think from drugs and poisoning and stuff. That wasn't enough that she had to shoot him, and then she couldn't do the least thing and dispose of him put him someplace. She had to literally cut that little boy up in pieces and put him in a suitcase. I mean, I can't comprehend somebody being mentally just being they're just evil. There can't be just because she had enough sense to do all this stuff. She had enough sense to drive to Florida. She had enough sense to be trying to look for a job and a place to live in Florida. She had enough sense to try to involve her own child. So where do you draw the line between when these people are really now? Honestly, I do believe Andrea Yates had some very serious mental issues. She's still in a mental facility here in Texas. She's not in prison. She is in a mental facility. Um, and I didn't know, but I found out. I looked up a little bit more on her. She actually had was suffering from depression. She had been dealing with that's why she wasn't a practicing nurse. They said she was on some different kinds of medication for depression, and she also, when she had that last baby, because she had him to stair steps and finally had the little girl. She had postpartum depression really bad with her, and the thing about it is both the families knew, her husband knew, and her mom knew, but because they missed a time length in between. I think it was about 45 minutes or whatever, and connecting to where she was by herself. That's what happened. But she honestly was under the influence of um, a cult, to a sense of a church, that she felt like the world was going to kill her children. She needed to get them out of here to save them. The woman, to me, she had a lot of, she just did. She had a lot of issues, but she didn't torture her children. She was a good mother up till then. She fed her kids, she clothed her kids, she took very, they said she was a very good mother. Yeah, she killed them, but she didn't torture her children. She didn't let her children be tortured. She didn't abuse them. And to me, that kind of seems like, to me, with her history that she had of mental problems and stuff, and being on medications, being uh, treated for different things. Maybe that actually, maybe she was mentally unstable. I just don't know anymore. Um, oh, Cotton, about Lindsay Clancy. Well, Cotton, I had mixed feelings about that case when I first heard about it. But the more research I did on it, this is another person that was a nurse. She was a delivery nurse. Um, they tried to say that, she had, she had problems, just the depression after she had her last baby and stuff. But actually, she had been being treated for several different conditions, was on several different medications prior to that. And the thing that bothers me, when I found out that she researched, when he went, because he quit his job to stay home so he could supervise her and the children. And when she sent him to go to the drugstore and to go pick food up, she Googled how long it would take him to go to those places and get back home. And she figured she had enough time to kill her children and herself. But she really, I mean, in doing that, she didn't even kill any of the kids like she thought she did to begin with, because the way I remember right, the two older ones died, I think, later that night or the next day, and the baby, I think, lived 2 or 3 days. And then when she jumped off that second floor, she's paralyzed. But here again, they've got her. I do think the medications, I do agree with you. I think some of those medications made her worse. And the postpartum, yes, that was what it was. But, you know, this is what bothers me. Why did the husband, the father of these kids, he knew her state, he knew what was going on. Why didn't he put those children in the car with him anyway and take them? He was just going to the drugstore. You can go through a drive through pharmacy and go through a drive through and pick food up. Or if he didn't want to leave her at home, why didn't he have her and the kids go in the car with him? I just don't understand that. Yeah, I don't believe there's any way she just went psychotic at that moment. I don't either. I just don't. But um, I think there may have been some more things going on that we're not privy to that may come out. But I mean, you know, they hadn't revoked her nursing privileges then, but they were going to, because she wasn't going to be allowed to continue any kind of nursing. They were going to pull her nursing license because of the medication she was on and the following. But the way I understand, she had been having, from people that she worked at, she had been dealing with a lot of depression and some mental issues for 3 or 4 years. That's people that worked with her were even concerned about. It just makes you wonder. They said she was having a good day that day, so in his mind, he probably never thought that would happen. But see, that's the problem. It's just like with Andrea Yates. It was between her mom and him, switching out. And when one got there, the other one could leave, or when the other one got there, the other one left. But because they thought everything was okay, they didn't figure that lapse of time would be enough there. And it's the same thing. They left, and she killed her kids. I mean, you got to really look, and I just don't know anymore. I can see seeing someone slipping into delusional thinking. I can see that. I can see it. And they these with this when Nancy, with the Clancy lady and Andrea Yates, I'm not as judgmental toward them in any way as I am toward these people that abuse their kids. And there's nothing, they weren't found mentally incompetent or anything. Or with Andrea, with Letitia Stout or Lori Vallow. I refuse to go with any mental conditions with either one of those women or these cases I've talked about earlier. I just, yeah, they're just that father that killed that little boy in 2017. He was jealous of the relationship that that little boy had with his mom, and he wanted to get, and he told the police that's why he killed his son. He wanted to get back at his at the mother, at his wife, his ex-wife. He wanted to get back at her because he knew that would be the one thing that would hurt her. And here again, you've got people. You had a father that had a bachelor's degree and no criminal record, and the mother was a principal at an elementary school. So please, you don't think immediately to think about things or people having those kind of problems. But the guy still was found with all kind of opiates and drugs in his car. I mean, and the other case I talked about, that was a criminal defense lawyer that all this stuff went on in 87 in Manhattan, in New York. I mean, if you go back and listen to the beginning when I was talking about these, um, it just, I don't know. I just can't, I don't have any, sympathy for some of these people at all, you know. Um, Spaceman, I never did get mine. So I just stopped after years of trying every kind they have. Oh, I see. Okay. Um, yeah, there is a lot of medications I think that cause a lot of people to have. There's some drugs I think they put people on that they're not monitored correctly on, and I think it can cause more depression and more suicidal tendencies than they had without the medication. And that's kind of been talked about in a lot of your uh, medical books and stuff, and a lot of things that medical reports that come out, that some drugs act differently on some people. They may be a miracle drug for others, and they may make others worse instead of better. And it can stabilize some people, and some people it makes them just go way off the deep end. So I can see where people um, can question people that have mental issues and are medications, how much the medications are affecting their behavior. That I do. I just I just hate to see when people um, want to run with that, and you know that they've never been. They're just mean. I mean, Letitia Stouch, Lori, about they never you never heard anything about any mental kind of problem issues with them until they were ready to go to trial. And they were trying to get out everything. And you think she was in a psychosis? She could have been. You know, she um, she could have been. I mean, who knows? But I still think, and maybe I'm wrong in being judgmental of her husband, but I'm just telling you what I believe I would have done in a predicament like that. If I had given my job up to stay at home to monitor someone and watch the children, and I needed to go on a food run and to pick medicine up, I would at least took the children, the three children with me. I wouldn't have left them there. What she does to herself, that's one thing, but the children, they're innocent, and they were innocent in this. And another person that Darlie Retier here in Texas, she tried to go with the um, lot of things to do with different things. Now she was actually on I can't fen that they give people years ago for weight gain and stuff. I don't know how much that had to do with anything. It may have, it may not have. in her case. She was also, I don't understand that the person she turned her kids over to the day before was the same person that had been allegated and sexually abusing her as a child. And I'm still wondering if she did actually have a backlash of something. Um, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. I think she's been in long enough. And back then we didn't have, you know, I think that now she should probably just be given, it should be commuted to life in prison for her, at this point in time, as long as she's been in there and stuff. I just, uh, she didn't, torture her kids and do that kind of stuff, and if she was a good mother up till then. She didn't beat them and abuse them and drug them and do the stuff that rape them and do all the stuff some of these sickos have done. I mean, that's the ones that I really have a horrible, horrible problem with. Uh, what are you talking about? Ketamine? What are you talking about? Hi, Kelly. Uh, Anxiety med. Oh yeah, Miss CD. I've heard about a lot about anxiety med. Critical thinking said Lindsay was prescribed drugs that are counter, contradicted in, um, counter and what do you mean? They interact I see what you're saying. They interact with each other. They counter and interact with that, um, in combination with. Mm, there again, that's you have to blame the doctors for that. So again, that's something that, probably needs to be looked into. Yeah, Ambien does do a number on a lot of people, and on some people, it's a lifesaver. Uh, hey, nobody, thanks for being here. Actually, I was talking a little bit about Andrea Yates, but I've already was talking back, earlier about, oh, touched a little bit more about baby Brianna that I did that last one on, and I was talking about that 16-year-old girl in Cleveland had her twins and put them in a trash can. That just happened a couple of weeks ago. I talked about a case back in 1987 that had to do with, a prominent criminal defense attorney, Steinberg, um, and the daughter that they said he adopted, but actually didn't adopt, and that was abused horribly, and that he was found guilty of. And then also in Los Angeles, California, in 2017, about the father and mother who had shared custody and how the father killed the little boy to get back at the mother. I mean, you know, I don't know. It's just really makes you wonder about some of this stuff. Yeah, a lot of people have tried a lot of things. I know the one doctor's office I go to, they give those ketamine infusions to some people that have mental disorders. Um, I've seen several different people come in and out that are in wheelchairs. You can tell some of them are pretty, mentally not. I don't know, but I know they get them. I'm not sure what they even use, how they use that stuff. I've never even been interested in even looking into that. Yeah, Darlene and her husband were huge party people. And I do, in all actual fairness to Darlie, I honestly believe that her husband was having an affair with her sister. And I'm going to believe that forever because there was people in the neighborhood that, actually, um, claimed to have seen him and her necking in the car before on several different occasions right there in the neighborhood they lived in. So I don't know. I'm kind of, you know, any more of these older cases, if she's already been convicted, she's already in. I want to do something to where these child abuse, something has got to change to get people to approach something differently with child abuse. It's ridiculous. These children, these innocent children that are dying from child abuse every day. It's horrible. And I look around and look, there's people, it's not just the biological parents or step parents, it is foster parents and it is adoptive parents that are abusing and killing these children also. I mean, it's just not with the natural parents. It's not like that. And it's not, I mean, it's actually people that have gone through uh, things, classes to be classified for foster parents, people that have gone through all different kinds of things, even now, to adopt a child, and they turn around and they abuse or they kill their adopted or their foster children. It's just, you see it all the time. And I just, the state and our CPS is kind of in a no win situation. If they remove these children from the home, what are they going to do with them to be sure that wherever they send them, they're not abused anymore? They can't guarantee that anymore because um, there's no guarantees in this life about anything. That's why most of the time CPS tries to, if all possible, they try to place children with family members if they possibly can, because they feel like they have a better chance at survival if they're with family members. However, that doesn't always work out either. But um, in some of these cases with some of these women that have had issues, some of these women were on like 8 and 10 different medications for depression and stuff. And I'm not sure, to me, that sounds very excessive to me. Um, I just don't. I just don't know about that. You know, when does a combination of certain medications become too much? Yeah, cotton, that is a drug that's pretty used pretty much so for a lot of people to help them sleep. Years ago, I took trazodone years ago to help me sleep, and that's because I was on so many steroids, even in the hospital through polymedrol drips and stuff that I was getting um, for my lungs and stuff. When I would have bronchitis and pneumonia and stuff, and my COPD would act up, they would give me that to help me sleep because the steroids wired me like I was climbing the wall and going to pull my hair out. I still cannot handle steroids now. And even then, I had to be on insulin and they had to monitor my sugar levels. Go crazy. I just can't tolerate him. And the older you get, the worse steroids affect you. It's just really, you just don't know how drugs are going to affect you. You just don't. And with me, I don't need to be taking steroids because of my bones, my osteoporosis, and my degenerative disc disease. I don't need it for that. My bone mass is not good. I was scheduled to get my MRIs this month, and my doctor did not get my authorization in to my insurance company until the Friday before I was supposed to go in and have them done. Um, and it wasn't enough authorization time, and the hospital wouldn't let me do it. So now I'm having them done on the 10th of June. Um, and it's already been authorized, so I don't have to worry about that. Um, like I said, they're concerned about me being able to walk much longer. So I'm just playing by that by ear. It's neither here or there. I've been knowing that there's always possibility, something like that happening. But like in my situation, like when I started, actually the steroids, I need them for my lungs at times when I'm sick or when I've got bronchitis or pneumonia or anything like that, or my COPD's flaring up really bad. But it's the worst thing in the world I can take for my bones. It's like my doctor said, you're in a no-win situation. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I think that's the way it happens for a lot of people who take different things. You just never You can have things that might work well for you for one thing, might be your worst enemy in another situation. Um, you just don't know, you know? Yeah, I think they were swingers too. I'll agree with you on that. Yeah. Stem cell, they've looked, one thing with me is my bone mass is so bad. And with, uh, the problem is my disc. I have 5 herniated discs, but I have 2 that are bulging. And the doctor wanted to go in and put spacers to keep my spinal cord is narrowing in and it's impinging on the spinal cord and it's hitting those nerves. And he wanted to take the pressure off that, put it in between those to stabilize my back. But in those spacers, you can only do so many at a time. But the thing he's concerned about is my bone mass. Um, he just doesn't know if my back's stable enough to even tolerate that. If it even would be worth at my age to do. So, and you're right, breathing issues are awful. Um, I used to think it was when I from smoking, but when I developed COPD, I had smoked in over 15 years. And they said no, they didn't believe for a minute it was from smoking. They believed it was from cleaning products because I was cleaning homes for 10 years prior to when I got sick. And a lot of the homes that I cleaned did not have good ventilation. They were older homes that didn't have good ventilation in them like you have now in the newer homes and stuff. So that's just some of the problems, that you run into as you get older, guys. You just do. And I've been fighting this problem with my bones and stuff for 22 years. I've been on stuff from Oxycontin to you name it. I've been on a lot of different things. They even wanted to put me on methadone. I said, absolutely not. Took myself off of Oxycontin. I've never gone back on it. I have no intentions of ever going back on that ever again. Um, it's not worth to me what it does to you mentally and your line of thinking. Yeah, it's a wonderful pain medicine, but hey, I'd rather hurt than have my mind so out there in the ozone, to where you can't even function. Um, that's just where I don't like it. And right now, I take tramadol. I take 100 milligrams every 24 hours. And if I have a lot of breakthrough pain, I can take Norco when I need it. But yeah, you're right. That trazodone was awful. It causes awful dreams. You're right. I had horrible dreams, and I took myself off that. I took myself when I went in the hospital in 2016 for almost kidney failure, where my kidneys had almost failed me. That scared me, and I took myself off of a lot of medicine, and I've never gone back on it. The last time I ever used trazodone was in 2016. I haven't used it since. And they also had me on lorazepam, um, and they'd been giving me that off and on because they thought I'd struggle a lot in taking care of my husband who had dementia and stuff, and taking care of him at home. And I'd gone through a horrible time with his death, and I'd also lost my dad that year, 6 months before. And she thought I need to be on that. Nope, took myself off that. No way. I take I'm on a blood pressure pill. I take lisinopril every day. I use Triology. It's an inhaler once every 24 hours for my COPD. I have albuterol inhaler when I need it. I take the tramadol every 24 hours, and I take the Norco as needed when I need it. And guys, that's all I take. I don't take anything else anymore. At one time, I was on 17 different medications, and it's not good. Those medicines build up in your system, and they have, it's just not worth it. And to me, it's like I told my doctor, I don't like being in pain, but one thing about pain is if you don't feel a little bit of pain, you have a tendency when you take pain medicine and it numbs you to where you don't feel anything, then you do things you shouldn't be doing. And you know what happens? You end up hurting yourself worse. And that's what I was doing. I would take medicine and feel like I was on top of the world. And next thing I knew, I was cracking ribs. I was falling. I mean, there's consequences to everything in this world. And it's just, to me, it's just not worth it, you know? And I just, no matter what the outcome is with this, if I can't have something to stabilize, if I end up in it not being able to walk in a few years or the next couple of years, that's just coming with age. I've had a good life and I'm perfectly fine with if I can't cook and continue to cook and do things. I have this child abuse channel I'm starting, so I have something I can do and I can try to put myself out there to be of benefit in some way to maybe helping people realize the severity of it, or maybe opening doors. Maybe somebody's listening that's thinking about or is hurting their child, and maybe they'll stop knowing that they can take that child, just give that child, turn the child over. For God's sake, if you can't, you're going to hurt your child, take it and drop it off the police station, at a hospital, at the fire department. Just tell them, I can't take care of this child anymore. I love my child, but I can't do it. You're not going to be criticized for doing that. You're going to be criticized for hurting that child, not for thinking enough that child to get that child to safety. That's just the way that uh, I feel about that. And that's the reason I started my cooking channel. I wanted to try to make things that were not expensive dishes, things that were uh, could be pretty economical. I wanted to show people, yeah, some people say, well, you make it look too easy. Well, I've been cooking since I was like 16. And people have said, yeah, you can get in there, you can whip up a meal in just a little bit. But, I do prep time ahead of time before I do my lives. I have to, or I'd have you on for 2 or 3 hours watching if you watched every stage of everything I did if I didn't do any prep. But I try to teach people prep work too, because those are things you can do. You can stick it in the refrigerator and you get home from work, you can make your life a lot easier. Or doing things in crock pots. You've got so many new devices out here you can use, Instapots and stuff. Um, and there's all kinds of casserole dishes and things. When you need to stretch the dollar, you can do it. And you can, I mean, just like with chili, like with spaghetti, there's a lot of dishes that you can take and feed. Um, you can feed 2 to 3 people, or you can feed 20 people. And or more, I'm not exaggerating a bit. You can't. And that's what I'm trying to do and trying to show people. It's not, you just, you just get in there and you don't get overwhelmed when you're cooking. You just take it easy. You do it slowly, and you learn to, if you really want to cook, cooking has been a total enjoyment to me all my life. This is something that I have loved, truly, cooking all my life. And not being a chef or anything like that, just a home cook, just home cooking. And my first husband and I had a restaurant. My first husband was a chef. Um, and I had the only time I ever had a mother-in-law was my second marriage, and she taught me a lot of things. I had a grandmother that taught me many things, and I had my first husband's aunt taught me many things. I had a lot of people that taught me for years. And I liked, people thought, oh, because I was raised in the city, I would never be able to do things. I lived in the country on a farm. I learned to milk cows. I went out there and helped the hogs when they were having their babies. I went and fed the cows in the dead of winter when it was 20 below zero. I went out and took chicken, got their eggs, took it in to town, sold the eggs. I sold the cow's milk. I had a garden. I learned to can vegetables and had a cellar where I put potatoes up and onions and stuff. I hung them in my old pantyhose in a potato bin. I learned to do things and I loved it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that life. Is it hard work? Yeah, it's hard work. Is it worth it though in the winter months for all that sweat you did in the summertime? Absolutely worth it. It is. It's worth it in a lot of ways. But those have been passions of mine all my life. But I look around at children, and I was in a very abusive marriage in my first marriage. And I look at how small my children were. And like that was in the late 60s, early 70s. You didn't do things, there weren't places to go through. You didn't talk about things like this. But had I not left in that first 10 years, he was killed in a car wreck, drunk driving. There are chances that me and my kids could have been with him if I'd stayed in that situation. So do I regret that? Absolutely not. I don't regret it. And I am very much for women in domestic violence. I understand that. I understand they're being scared. I understand the abuse. I understand the legal sides of what you have to go. It seems like it's very demeaning and stuff. I know that. I've seen it. I've done it. I know. And it's not easy, but this is just what goes on. It's life, guys. But we have to do something for our children. There's too many children dying. There's too many children that are being abused on a daily basis and they're losing their lives. And it's getting worse, it's not improving, and that's where I'm at. My opinion on something based on my experience. Yes, go ahead, critical. You sure can. Anybody can ask me anything they want to. I'm not afraid to answer any kind of questions to anybody. I've been pretty open with people about my entire life. Uh, I just have been, and you know, I got so tied up in that Watts case for 5 years, I couldn't see whether I was coming or going, and I've just walked away from that. And I'm telling you, that's actually been one of the biggest reliefs in my life, mentally and physically. I can tell you, I can't begin to tell you how much a relief mentally it is to be away from that now, to walk past it, let it go, and that's the end of it. It's just been a big relief and just not worrying about it anymore. It's been 5 years, just letting it go, you know, instead of being fighting with people and bickering with people and making enemies and feeling like you've got to browbeat and demeanor yourself to try to put points across because other people are attacking you. Life's more than that. It just isn't. It isn't like that, at all. Um, yeah, yeah, you do. Critical thinking. Did you want to ask me my opinion here, or are you going to, okay. Okay, Steinberg was abusing, yes, before they adopted the children. How do you view her lack of advocacy for those children? She was abused, yes. She also stayed and allowed child abuse. Um, I I have looked into that quite a bit. Um, I'm only going by what I seen from the time it showed from the time they got together and what it was like before they got these children, and how it changed, how she started changing, and her looks and her appearances, and also the condition she was in when they were arrested. She had two black eyes. She had cracked ribs. She had a leg that had gangrene all in it. They said she was full of infections. She had bruising and she had clumps of hair missing. She had abrasions to her scalp. Um, I think that she had been probably abused quite a bit. In looking at the children, you know, I can't I can't excuse her for any of that. Um, but the way I understand it, things didn't get bad for this little girl till in September, and when the teachers really started noticing things more with her. And I don't know if you know or not, that adoption was not legal. He got a hold of a doctor that um, that told the mother told that doctor to give $500 to the lawyer to have that lawyer place her daughter in a Roman Catholic home someplace because she was going to college and she couldn't take care of her. But instead of him doing that, the lawyer kept her. There was never ever even a legal adoption on either one of the kids. I don't know if you know that or not. The little boy was actually, like I said, replaced back with his birth mother, and she renamed him, and he's got a different life. The thing, it was a crooked adoption for both them, but the thing, I understand what you're going. I have a hard time with the filth and the stuff that was in that home, and the fact that when that girl was found, when 911 got there, she was found in the bathroom floor, stark naked, bruised. She had abrasions and swelling to, well, a fist mark to her cheek. She had contusions and stuff to the scalp. Her hair was matted together with vomit and filth. She reeked of urine. She had dirt on her feet, under her toes, under her nails, on her legs. The baby was in a makeshift playpen with a rope tied to him in his own feces and curdled milk in a cup. Yeah, no. Um, it's not baby Bruna. This is the Steinberg case I was talking about in 1987. It was a criminal defense lawyer that got these two children illegally uh, through an illegal adoption, and they're never really his kids, but they were horribly. I mean, the little girl was. It cost her life. The last blow, they said they found an exercise piece that had her that had. Well, they didn't say her hair, had hair and blood, and there's blood splatter on the walls. Um, and it was a crooked adoption with both of them. But I do. She waited 11 hours to call 911. You're right, she did, and she said she thought he was a healer. She did say that, and he told her he was going to heal her leg and that he'd take care of the little girl when he got back. Had she called the authorities when he left, that little girl, they think they're about 90% sure she would have been alive because they could have gone in and relieved the brain from the bleeding around the brain and stabilized her. And by the time she was unconscious and she was on a, a vent, she never did regain consciousness. The hospital was the one that decided to pull her off of everything. The ventilator, they pulled her off the vent and everything when she 3 days later because they said there was no hope for her. I'm torn on that. I think she was horribly abused by him, but I think that she knew enough from right and wrong that she should have done something to help that girl. I'm still thinking that she should have been held accountable in some way for some kind of child abuse on both the children, especially the baby being, that plus not reporting. She knew that the little girl was in bad shape. I think she should be held accountable for that. They chose, well, what they did, they dropped the charges. This is what they did. She was charged. They dropped the charges against her to get her to testify against him so they could get him convicted. Um, that's what happened. It really is. That's what happened. Um, so they had to have her testimony and had to have her, I do remember they're asking her in court um, if she was ever jealous of the little girl's relationship with her father, and she said no. And I don't think it was a jealousy issue. I think she was so controlled by him. Um, I don't know. I don't think she had much mental state left to her. I think she was so up, what you call, so far up his butt, she didn't know. I mean, she just thought he was just, the sun rose and set on him, and she thought he could do no wrong. That's just, I really do. I think that's what she did it. But it was no excuse for her not to report him. and certainly not for her to call when that little girl was unconscious on the bathroom floor. I don't care. He was out to dinner with his clients and come home. She said that he came home with cocaine and that he did a bunch of it and made her do something. Now, I don't, that's her words. I don't know anything about, I do know he was a big cocaine user. I don't know the extent of all that. Yeah, it was in New York, in Manhattan, in one of the better neighborhoods. But they said the cleanest thing in that apartment was the fish tank. Now, that tells you a lot about where people's priorities were. Um, it happened in Manhattan, nobody in New York in 1987. His name is Joel Steinberg. He was a criminal defense lawyer. And like I said, I found out that because he dropped out of law school to go into the military during the Vietnam War, that when he got back, he finished law school, but they excluded him from having to take the bar exam to become a lawyer. He was given a lawyer attorney's license without ever passing the bar exam. He was excluded from that. And that's where it happened, was in Manhattan in New York in 1987. It's a big case. You can read all about it. It is just, it's crazy. It just, it is. But like critical think I am, I'm just, yeah, she just, who ties a rope to a baby and puts him in a makeshift playpen right next to a desk? Curdled milk. He was full of feces. She wasn't bathing him. She wasn't bathing the kids. She wasn't keeping them clean. Apparently, she wasn't making sure he had good milk 'cause the milk in the cup was curdled. I mean, the kids were filthy. She was filthy. That whole place was filthy dirty. I mean, they said their clothes even smelled. The clothes even smelled that was even in there. There was nothing that didn't reek of, just terrible, disgusting smells. And I know the detective said in the 22 years that he had been investigating things in good neighborhoods and bad. He said that's the worst he'd ever seen, um, an apartment shape being than he had ever seen in 22 years. So it had to be pretty bad. It just, it did. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna get off here for tonight. Hopefully, YouTube will have me approved by sometime late tomorrow or early Saturday for my other channel, and I will get that up and going. But I have a lot of cases I want to discuss on child abuse. I'm going to have open panels. I will have the moderators whenever they can be here. Um, and we'll just go from there, you know. Um, I really do. And yeah, that she saw that. Absolutely. I agree with the critical thinking. There's just, a lot of things that, there's pros and cons to things. And I didn't totally excuse her. I mean, she was terribly abused, true. And I didn't, because, at one time she uh, was an editor for children's books at Random House. And, she had a good work record until she started missing so much work um, after she was with him and stuff, and for different obvious reasons. And they said that they started seeing, uh, signs of abuse on her and stuff, and they're not doing anything about it. So, this is one of these cases that they were in a no-win situation. I really think, guys, I think that in order to get him convicted, that they had to have her testify against him. But like I said, the one juror, if you go look at that, uh, he said that most of the women on the jury that had been sitting 3 months listening to this case were not sympathetic with her at all. They had no sympathy for her at all. And he said they couldn't get, that's why they couldn't get him on the second-degree murder charge. They got him on a manslaughter charge. Um, Finally, that got him 8.5 to 25 years, and the judge said told him, I hope you'll have to spend the full 25 years there because that's what you deserve. And the whole time he's standing there trying to explain to the judge, I didn't hurt my daughter. My daughter loved me. I loved her. I would have never hurt her or done anything. I didn't hurt that woman. I never did anything to her. Okay, you didn't hurt the little girl. You didn't hurt the woman. You never said that anything about the dirty conditions the baby was in and the filth that everybody lived in, the smell that was on the children, and the neglect that was on the children. So you just saying you did nothing? I mean, nothing's your fault. Yeah, right. I can see where they go. So anyway, guys, uh, good night to everybody. Have a good night's sleep. Hopefully I'll see you this weekend. I'm gonna try to get. I'm feeling better. I'm gonna try to get up in that kitchen and do some cooking this next week a little bit, and just keep in mind and keep prayers um, going up for these children that are suffering every day because, um, you know, it's going to take God to intervene maybe in some of these cases, and maybe in some way He can, or He can grant these children some peace to where they don't have to feel all the abuse and stuff they're going. It's almost, um, you know, people give God a mind and they can know right from wrong, and He gives them that choice to make and do things and do the choices from right and wrong. And so you have to actually, you can't blame him for the things that go on. It's the world, it's the condition, it's the way people have gone. Our society has gone to shit. It's just that simple. I'm sorry, but it has. And we just got to do more, more and more. That's all there is to it. But, say prayers at least for these kids, for God to at least put a protective shield, maybe to where they're not, even when they're being abused, that maybe they're, they can just go someplace and not even know what's going on because, it has to be horrible, the torture these kids go through. I just can't even possibly imagine some of these cases that these kids have suffered horrible abuse. It's just disgusting. So anyway, guys, I will see you later and keep watch out for that new channel, Armor of Love. And I'll see you all later. Thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate y'all. Good night, everybody. Bye.